clock in. Check the numbers on the wall. Everything rises, everything can fall. Red lines, green lines, none of it matters when you got your hands steady. Doing work again. They talking about corrections, talking about the dip. I'm talking about consistency, talking about the grip. On what you control, that's the muscle, that's the bone. While they panic selling, I'm just in my zone. Up and down, round and round. Keep your feet flat on the ground. When it's moving, when it's still, that's the rhythm, that's the drill. Up and down, round and round. Find your focus, hold it down, down. October wasn't pretty, November looking strange, but my discipline don't pivot just because the seasons change. Liquidation Nation got everybody stressed. Meanwhile, I'm just focused on delivering my best. Support levels breaking, let up break. I got my own foundation I'm trying to make. Built on showing up, built on a routine. Not the speculation, just the work between. Up and down, round and round. Keep your feet flat on the ground. When it's moving, when it's still, that's the rhythm, that's the drill. Up and down, round and round. Find your focus, hold it down. Guarantees don't exist. Just the moment right here, just the work, just this. Institutional money flowing out the door, but I'm institutional with what I'm here for. Every single day, every single shift, that's my premium, that's my gift. Ethereum slide and Solana taking hits. I'm just clocking hours, stacking on my grid. Volume getting heavy, headlines getting loud. I tune into the task, tune out the crowd. Risk is everywhere, always has been. Certainty's a myth that we all live in. So I ride the wave with my eyes ahead, following my process, that's how I'm fed. That's how I'm fed. Up and down, round and round. Keep your feet flat on the ground. When it's moving, when it's still, that's the rhythm, that's the drill. Up and down, round and round. Find your focus, hold it down. When the cap falls, when the cap climbs, I'm just here steady, putting in my time. That's the real investment, that's the play. Show up tomorrow like I showed today.
The great tree bends down and the small ones fall. The wind comes from the north, brings storm once again. The branches detach one by one to the ground. What yesterday bloomed, today withers without flight. Here I am, watching how the way solid ground, the roots so alone. When the giants stumble, the small ones fall. The underbrush trembles, no one knows what it brings. Oh, trembling, my feet losing ground. Trembling, trembling, everything ends, and my build slides away without a warning. The harvest I sow with these tired hands is carried by the tide, leaving me with nothing. And here I am, holding on to branches that break solid ground. The storms inhabit me. When the giants stumble, the small ones fall. The underbrush trembles, no one knows what it brings. Oh, trembling, my feet losing ground. Trembling,
All right, let's see. Mic check, mic check, mic check. Volume should be good. Stream seems okie doke. So let's get started. Let's keep this quick. Gonna try to stay focused, figure out what my steps are, and we're just gonna stick to Bitcoin. We are not gonna get into Ethereum or alts, like relationships or anything. But we have a 5-day candle closing today in a few hours. And so tonight will be time for me to make a decision starting the next week, whether or not I would like to open a grid bot and what my targets would be. And, until this candle closes on 5-day, I cannot assume anything about this candle. So that's why we want to wait for the week, for essentially the weekly and the 5-day candle close to make our decisions for the next several upcoming weeks. And I'll explain a little bit why I think this is a good time to start considering a grid bot. And then my next video, hopefully tomorrow morning, will be just the setting up of the grid bot and reviewing the candles that close today. So let's get started. We can't deny it. We have Bitcoin dominance correcting down a little bit. It's part of a larger uptrend, however, we can't forget that. But essentially, the trend in price is to the downside. And this is always the game of how low can it go? And essentially, this is the time to be patient and watching because we have already de-risked and took profits from the top. And so I am rotating capital back into Bitcoin so that I can start accumulating more of it with the understanding that maybe it can go down a little bit lower. So let's see what that might look like. So we have the weekly, the 4-day, and the 2-day time frames. We have exponential moving averages, a volatility indicator, a directional indicator, a volume indicator, and then all this, after I take in all that information, I start using the RSI to actually manage decisions on the smaller time frames. And I'll explain how that works with RSI in later videos. But this is just my overall first snapshot, the least amount of indicators that I need and use. And we're even just going to keep it simple here and keep the Heikin-Ashi candles on so that we can just be clear what our uptrends and downtrends are and the range that we find ourselves in. Our first indication here that we might want to start de-risking and that we might be starting to head into a correction was the cross of the 5 and 13 EMAs. When the candles closed below the cross, we essentially have a target that we would expect to be hit at the 50-week EMA. This target was hit, not this last week, but 2 weeks ago. And now the question becomes, does it go below the 50-week EMA? Does it find support? Or do we get a bounce? Historically, 2 weekly closes below the 50 EMA has signaled the highs in the what has been the 4-year cycle of Bitcoin. So we have this down move. next thing I want to know is it going to be, are we coming into a volatile period or are we coming into a non-volatile period? Traders make the majority of their profits when things are volatile. So I want volatility. However, risk also increases when volatility increases. So I have to manage my risk according to the volatility that is present on the time frames that I'm using, high time frames. And volatility tells us that there are bounces in volatility. We have not had one yet. However, if we can find a bounce, that will tell us a lot of information. But overall, over the next coming weeks and couple months, we would expect increasing or expanding volatility. We do not know until the next frame what that direction will be. But this is our main guardrail here on the weekly time frame. So we zoom in a little bit to the 4-day time frame. This will just give us earlier signals than the lagging signals on the weekly time frame. And without giving us too much information. We will zoom in on the next frame, but this is where we can actually start looking at potential targets. We can clearly see we have highs at 126,000, and we have the 200 EMA as support, and that has not yet been tested. And we are below the 50 EMA cloud, and we have reverted back to the mean of all this trading activity here. So we are looking for a move away from the mean and potentially to touch support at the 200 EMA and then revert back to the mean again. So that's the expected, at least the bare minimum amount of activity that one would expect between 126K and 80K right below us. So if we go to the 2-day time frame, which is basically the weekly time frame in half and in half again, we can see that we crossed the 5 and the 13 with the 50. Again, this actually sets up a earlier target of 90,000. But we've established a clear downtrend. We've broken key supports on the higher time frames. We are in a downtrend, and so we are looking for a bottom and at least a bounce back to the mean. How price action gets back to the mean will tell us a lot about what might happen in the future after that. But price has to get back to the 50 EMA, back to the mean, back to this purple cloud before we can talk about further upside. Until then, we're looking for a bottom, for support, so that we can essentially return to the mean after that. And we have some nice targets set up and some nice ranges for a long-term grid fund. And down here on the second pane on stochastic, we do have confirmation, if we need it, that we are in a downtrend. Stochastic is trending down, which means that the direction is down. And if we're looking for increased volatility, we're looking for increased volatility to the downside. So we are looking for big moves to the downside. And we are seeing some of that volatility with the wicks at the bottom of these candles. So we are approaching this 200 EMA. We've gotten all of our signals that it's time to de-risk, and all the EMAs are moving towards the 200. So that's the trend that we're following. So let's go to the next pane. So this is where I start really setting up some targets and a plan, and using the RSI, start assessing the type of patterns that I'm looking for. And if I see them, my confidence increases and I can add money to my position, or essentially watch it and manage the grid bot. But most of the time it'll be running once set up and making trades for me and helping me make a profit while at work and sleeping, which is the goal here. Anyways, let's not ramble. So we went from the 2-day down to the 12-hour here. We can see that we have a let's look at this real quick. So this pitchfork is based off of this swing low to this swing high back to this swing low. If we want to continue this uptrend, we would expect to continue this uptrend within these parallel lines. And this red line is the mean of this uptrend. So we are looking for support either on the blue or the purple line, and a reversion back to the mean at some point on this red line. And we expect to see activity on these inner channels as well. So we've swung up, we've corrected, almost back to the golden pocket, which algos and bots love the golden pocket, 618 retrace. We also recognize that if this is a 2-wave, or it can come down to the 0.786, which is also a good line of support. And really, if we're wanting to break, if we correct back to the 0.886, we are likely to go down further. So the way this idea works is that we are looking for support. We're buying when things are on sale. And we're looking for a bounce at the 618 or the 786, and then we're looking for continued upside back to the mean. And since we have a fake out, you see we crossed below the 50 cloud, we come up, we break through the 50 cloud, we reject almost right here at the top of this channel, and essentially it's a fake out or a trap and a rejection of the mean. Oh crap, there we go. So we essentially have a fake out, comes down, tests the mean again, and it rejects. So this is, in my mind, kind of the line of scrimmage for the bulls and the bears. The bulls have to get up above this in order to really start an uptrend that we can be confident in. So this is going to be the range high that I'm interested in. We also, as price came down, we had another confirmation of a rejection of the mean. And so again, we're moving away from the mean, and we have 2 targets, which are good places to accumulate at lower prices. And we have a clear 80,200 kind of line in the sand that if hit, we would be looking for a bounce, but we would be ultimately looking for further downside. So as long as we hold these supports, we are eventually looking to move up to this 111,000, and then we'll see what happens after that. So we have an upper range for our grid bot. We have a lower range, and we have we would expect to see sharp moves down, and on the RSI, bullish divergence to give us an indication that a low would be in. We would either see that here at this area of support or see it down at the 786. Of course, if it goes to 786, we start getting Bitcoin at better prices. However, very nice support here at 91. Even if it goes up to 111 and comes back down after that to the 786. Who knows what can happen. But volatility is great for grid bots because volatility essentially means a lot of up and down. And we are going to place the top range of our grid bot at the 111 area. And if we put the lower range of our grid bot at 85, we can see that current price action is around 40%. So anything underneath the 50% is essentially on sale. And anything above is will be us taking profit on our grid bot. Explain how all this works when we set it up, but essentially I like entering grid bots when I'm expecting bottoms, when I'm expecting bounces, and when price is below 50% of my preferred range. I currently have 4 other grid bots already running. 2 of them are ETH BTC grid bots, and 2 of them are other Bitcoin bots. However, they are more long-term with their upper ranges, 150K. So, but this is the next grid bot idea that I have. Explain more about what that actually looks like and how it works with the grid bot tomorrow. But I'm interested in trading these ranges. So I'll explain tomorrow how a grid bot allows me to do that. Thank you. Have a good day and do good work.